So, my wife and I find ourselves at a crisis point in our marriage because my wife is trying to convince me, harass me really, to join the community or the cult of Bitmoji users. And it's not happening. A house divided cannot stand. And a house divided over Bitmojis is sure to crack very quickly. I refuse to see myself represented with a cartoonishly large head dressed up as a pickle. Welcome to Rumble Book Club. I'm your host, Michael Hernandez, and this is the show where a normal guy like me can talk about interesting books I've read, old and new, good and bad. So if you like the show, you like the content, you like the books that I talk about, or maybe you're just part of the anti-Bitmoji community, well, you've come to the right place, my friend. You can follow me on Twitter, TikTok, and Parler. And you can subscribe right down below on YouTube and Rumble. But more importantly, be a part of the conversation. Share these videos with your friends, help our channel grow, and comment down below. Let me know if there's any books you want me to cover, anything you want me to add to the list. I might even do an episode about it and give you a shout out for recommending me to a good book. Today we're going to take a look at a really awesome book that I read a couple years ago, and I'm glad that I finally get to share it with you. Today we're going to take a look at Cold Case Christianity by J. Warner Wallace. Wallace is a former cold case homicide detective in Los Angeles, California. He was a self-avowed atheist for much of his career, but he became a Christian after exploring the topic through his career lens. He's the founder of PleaseConvinceMe.com, which is a blog and a podcast in which he reviews questions and arguments against Christianity and generates his own responses to them. We're going to get into our three-part criteria of the book, starting with the aesthetics, just how it looks, how it pops off the shelf, moving into the readability, how a normal guy like me can fare trying to read through this book, and then finally the content, what you're actually getting between the covers, if it's good or bad. So let's look at the aesthetics. So we've got a plain white backdrop here with a stack of files and handcuffs here to kind of symbolize his service to law and order, his service to the justice community. You also have a Bible here in the background, symbolizing the focus of the study in this book. The title is very simple here at the top and in clear letters, definitely pops in the layout. The layout here, it gets a little bit bunched because there is some subtext here. You got his name, which is pretty clear, at least in the very least you have the title in the name very prominent, but because everything's kind of pushed here, then you have a lot of activity, it's a little bunched, but nonetheless a very strong cover. Solid 8 out of 10. Woo! Getting sweaty, getting hot! Smoking! Alright, let's look at the readability. Wallace does a great job formulating the book where he alternates fluidly between his personal experience, claims against Christianity, which he leads the chapter with, and then counter cases to defend Christianity. He does a great job laying out the talking points in very simple language and giving visual aids and timelines to help the more visual-oriented learner. Heavier topics like crime investigation and theology can be a bit complicated, so you got to work a little bit through understanding how that works, but Wallace does a great job interpreting this for the common reader to help you to understand it. Also, as far as physically how it reads, the pages are a little bit big, so by default you get slightly larger walls of text, but he breaks it up with fun facts and stuff like that, and then he also adds photos, diagrams, simple stats like this, which makes it a much easier read. So as far as the readability, it's actually really strong, 9 out of 10. Now let's talk about the content. The average reader will actually learn a significant amount about three things. One is crime scene inspection and homicide investigation. Wallace takes you through multiple personal accounts about how he prepared when walking into a crime scene, what to look for, and how to approach evidence. He talks about chain of evidence and how important establishing a timeline is to determining the plausibility of a potential perp. The second thing you learn a lot about is actually fairly strong defenses for atheism as a Christian. As a former atheist, Wallace didn't rely on straw man arguments to back up his disbelief in the existence of God. He points out valid concerns that the average person, the average atheist or agnosticist, agnosticist, would have on the existence of God. These aren't petty emotional arguments that you might see from movies like God's Not Dead, where the atheist just seems to be this angry, bitter shell that's lashing out emotionally because of some past trauma. He had logical reasons for his belief. They were thought out, logical questions that are simply missing in investigators' lens, or a crucial premise of the argument, such as historical criticisms over the life of Christ and the authors of the New Testament. The final thing you learn is about solid points and evidence for the validity of the Christian message. You learn the other side of that coin. You learn valid points for atheism and agnosticism, and then you learn valid points in Christian response to that. These are also not a collection of emotional arguments and cheap platitudes like the beauty of a rainbow and all this crap that you see on Facebook posts by grandma. He uses his skills as a former homicide investigator to look at the timeline, the witnesses to the story, the strength of the historical writings in general, and separating articles from artifacts. He doesn't ridicule the atheist that doubts Christianity as definitively real. He only shows you the evidence as he discovered it at the time and gives you the conclusion that he reached personally. What really stuck out to me was the argument against the writings of the gospel being accurate because of how limited the writing on it is. You learn just how much history we take for granted. Everything from the Battle of Thermopylae to a lot of the Roman battles in their history. A lot of them were based on much smaller pieces of evidence, smaller pieces of writing, and less historical accounts than a lot of the biblical accounts and a lot of the gospel writings. Another cool thing that I learned from the book is I learned about how different eyewitness accounts is actually not necessarily a bad thing. When all accounts line up verbatim together with zero difference, that's actually a little bit troubling of a conclusion. The four Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, they actually touch some of the same points, but they also have different stories that they tell that the other Gospels don't, and that's actually a positive sign. It's more realistic in the real world. What Wallace shows is that as an investigator, people are different. They come from different backgrounds, they have different life experiences, they notice different things. And so whenever you hear different accounts that aren't necessarily completely different, but they have variations, they might notice different things, that's actually a sign that the story is actually true. It helps you complete the picture in a more realistic way. So with all the stuff you learn in this book, all the stuff he's able to show you and teach you, as far as the content goes, this is a flawless 10 out of 10. This was one of the few books that I found online. I got it off of Amazon, but you might still be able to find it at maybe the Christian theology section of your local bookstore. I would check there first. You know, your Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, Half Price Books, whatever it is. Support your local bookstore. If all else fails, then give Amazon or eBay a try. You're bound to find it. This should be on everyone's bookshelf, whether or not you're an atheist or a Christian. You learn a lot either way. The book is Cold Case Christianity by J. Warner Wallace. Go out and get yourself a copy. Thanks for watching, everybody, and go read something.